Hello again! Week 5 already. Trying to find the volume. There we go. Okay, we have a lot to talk about today. Well, not a lot, but like a lot of details. And I have to answer a lot of questions. So, actually, a lot of questions in a sense that a lot of you are asking the same question. So, that's pretty good. I mean, at least that we know we're all on the same page. Alright, well, let's see. Oh, returned the papers, so that's very good. The average grade, actually, it was exactly equal for both sections, was an 81%. So you can kind of base, where you fell on that spectrum. So that was great. I was really happy to read some good writing, and it's always exciting to, get that first paper in. Doing it is kind of like not fun, but after it's done, you kind of have a good feel for how your professor grades, and I have a good feeling for how you guys write, all that sort of stuff. So we have that in the past. However, we now have paper number 2 right in front of us, and that's due Sunday. So I'm going to talk about what that means in a few minutes, but I want to just wrap up a couple other things before I go on. Let's see. It was really interesting to read some of your feedback on the samples that you looked at, and a lot of opinion. And so that's really neat. Like, if usually I'm in a face-to-face class, sometimes people are a little hesitant to say, like, whether or not they liked something or not liked something. But I'm finding it really great that all of you are really vocal in a very good way, whether or not you are for or against something, and having, the ability to do so. So I'm saying that as, like, the book's working, we're learning how to argue about weird things, and then using those skills to actually argue about things that are actually important to us. So I found that really, really great. Let's see. Elia Al-Yusuf got sidetracked in his own response, which was awesome, so I thought that was a lot of fun reading your video, or your response from last week's response. I've got to make this page bigger. Okay. Keep getting sidetracked by my own screen, so I have to block everything else out. Alright, let's talk about what's coming up this week. We have week 5, weekly update. Duh, you're watching it. Due Thursday is your topic approval for paper 2, which I've received a ton of those already, but if you have not sent me your topic for paper 2, make sure you do it by Thursday. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. You also have a reading from our textbook. A couple discussion questions, only 4 of them this time, but you also have some critical reading and writing, which you've done a couple times already, so you know the drill. And then you also have your paper, so it's kind of a busy week. So if you haven't started on your stuff yet, you really need to get a jump on it. But then we're, 2 weeks to go. Wow. So we are just flying through this thing. It's unbelievable. Okay, so you have that. Let's talk about paper number 2 right now. And where is my paper description? Wait for it. Okay, found it. Paper 2. Paper 2 is what we're calling experiencing persuasion. And what I mean by that is that, every day we go and do things, and we have situations where people try to persuade us to do something, persuade us to buy something. It could be something trivial as, oh, do you want to supersize your meal? They're trying to get you to persuade you to do something different. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about experiencing persuasion. For this assignment, you're going to just put yourself in one of those persuasive situations. And I want you to actually put yourself in that persuasive situation as opposed to you making a persuasive situation. So you are not going to try to persuade someone to do something, but someone is going to try to persuade you to do something. And I should say, you don't have to do it. If you're going to a car dealership, don't buy a car. If you're at McDonald's and they ask you to supersize it, fine, if you want to. And if you're in the market for a car, by all means. But I will not be held responsible for your financial inability to say no to a car. So I'm just saying, I have to say it or else. So, not my fault. If these persuasive tactics work really well. You're just supposed to observe them and see how they work. but not actually follow through on them. So, for example, if you're going to a car dealership and, they ask you about, they take you around the car, you take a test drive, they try to give you a good price, you can say, you know what, I'm just going to think about it for a little bit and scoot out the door, before you even get carried away in anything else. Do not make any commitments that way. Again, unless you're in the market, totally different story. Okay, so what you have to do, there's 4 steps to this assignment. 1, you have to identify a situation in which you will encounter persuasion. That's what you have to send me by Thursday. So when I say you need a topic, send it to me. So a lot of you have said, I'm going to go to a furniture store, or I'm going to go to, a jewelry party, or, Pampered Chef, something. A lot of you have had some good ideas of where you're going to head. It's really wide open. So if you can come up with an idea, send it to me. I also suggest that you come up with a backup. For some reason, maybe something doesn't work out right. You can have something ready to go. So it's always better to have a backup as opposed to scrambling at the last minute and trying to figure out what you're going to do. So just, come up with a backup if you want to. Then send it to me. And I've never said no, I don't think. Or if I have, I've said, okay, maybe you might want to try to expand it a little if it's been a little, if you say, oh, I just want to go to McDonald's to see if they ask me to supersize something. That's not really going to yield you too much for an entire paper. So I might say, go to a couple fast food restaurants or something. But that hasn't happened. Okay, number 3 is you're going to expose yourself to the situation and take notes on the experience. So you're going to actually go and do what you said you're going to do. So if your suggestion was, I'm going to go to a Pampered Chef party and see how they try to get me to buy more stuff, go to the Pampered Chef party, observe. You don't actually have to take notes while you're there because it might look a little funny. It also might throw off the host. So if the host is trying to use some tactics and they're like, wait, why are you taking notes? Oh, it's for a class assignment. I'm figuring out what you're doing. That might throw them off. So you might just want to try to use your memory as best as you can, but if you need to jot down a few notes, maybe take them on your phone or something like that. And then finally, you have to write your analytical paper about the experience, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So, find a topic, have it approved by me, go to the persuasive situation, and then write your paper. So 4 clearly defined, steps to doing this. So most of you, by Thursday, if not already, have already checked with me and had it approved. And so if you have not already gone to your persuasive experience, that would be the next step. But what you're going to do is you are going to go to this place or go to that, Tupperware party or whatever, and you're going to figure out what tactics are being used. And the examples of tactics and concepts from the handout reading that we had last week are foot in the door, door in the face, and that's not all. And I'm on the next page. Slowly escalating commitments, the illusion of choice, conformity and social proof, conveying illusions of authority, honesty, and likability, and then the base rate fallacy and negativity bias. I have some notes on this that I usually use when I teach this class face-to-face. I'm going to post those on VSpace after I'm done making this video. So you'll be able to see those all written out. I'm going to talk about them a little bit, but at least you'll have some notes to go back and refer to afterwards. So you're going to have to figure out what all these things mean. They're very clearly defined in our reading, but in a few minutes I'm going to give you a couple little tricks that'll help you kind of identify them a little bit more. So once you've gotten your topic approved, or given me your topic approved, put yourself in that persuasive situation, then you're going to write your paper. And what this paper is there are 3 specific sections. And this comes after the completing, see if I can, it's backwards, but this is what I'm referring to. After completing your field experience, write a paper in which you, A, use persuasive concepts and logical fallacies to analyze the tactics that were employed. So what you're going to do is you're going to find, this is kind of a couple of you have said something to me like, I don't really get this assignment, and I'll take full blame for that I need to revise the way this is worded. So I'm sorry about that. It's really awkward. I adapted it from somebody else's assignment, and it's just sometimes it doesn't work. So I have to revise it. So let me just tell you, let me reinterpret what it means. So A, use persuasive concepts and logical fallacies to analyze the tactics that were employed. You're going to take a look at those different tactics that we just read off, foot in the door, door in the face, etc. And you're going to say, how are those used? Did somebody use, foot in the door Did somebody use slowly escalating commitment? Did they use illusion of authority? Were there multiple tactics at play? Was there only one? And why do you think they only used one? So try to identify as many as you can. There might only be just one thing that the salesperson tries to use, but there might be a ton of them. So really be open to looking for them and, just not limiting yourself to like, oh, I only need one. I'm only going to write about one. Again, it's easier to have more stuff and get rid of it than have less stuff and need more. At least that's what I always feel. So you're going to look at the different types of situations that were presented to you and the tactics that were used. So you're going to try to analyze that and say, oh, once they've tried foot in the door at me. They said, well, you're already here. You might as well buy something. You don't want to drive all the way across town over there. It's going to be the same price. It might be a few dollars more here, but you're going to spend the gas money, so you might as well just spend it here. So they might try some of those techniques. So be open to that. B, reflect on how you responded to the tactic. So again, if they, let's say, that foot in the door, they say, yeah, just buy it here. Save the gas. You might think to yourself, yeah, you're right. I really don't feel like it took me a long time to get here. The traffic was horrible. I just want to go home. I don't feel like being out and about anymore. Just let me buy this and then I'm done. You might say that. You might say, it worked because I realized I didn't really want to go back out in traffic. I was going to spend the gas money anyway. Well, it's $1 or $2 more. I might as well just buy it while I'm here. Convenience worked. So explain how you responded to those. You could have either said something or it could have been an action. So just go through that and tell us what happened. And then C, this is similar to what you had to do in the logical fallacy assignment. Articulate how you can more effectively resist similar persuasion attempts in the future. Remember with the logical fallacies, you had to say, okay, how would I fix this? For this, you're doing basically the same thing, except how would I fix myself? That sounds really awful. What I want you to say, let me start that again. You're not fixing yourself. It's like I'm on the verge of cracking up. Okay. Take 2. Forget what I just said. You're giving advice. Say your friend is in the mood to go buy a new couch or something. And you're like, oh, I actually went to that art van that you're going to, and they had this really pushy salesman. They're going to try to sell you the extended warranty. They're going to try to sell you the, protector or whatever for the fabric. Don't even listen to that. Just, that's what happened to me, but just beware that that's going to happen, and just be ready to say no if you don't want it. So that's what I'm thinking about. You want to give somebody advice. So it's almost as if you're talking to a friend and saying, hey, I've been there. This is what happened. This is how you can avoid it. Oh, you know what? I know that salesman was really pushy. I think I'm going to go to a different one instead now. So you might give that suggestion. So again, if they're just suggestions for next time. It could be, advice. It could be ways you think that they would fix the sales process. Whatever comes to your mind. So those are the 3 sections that what you're going to write about for this paper. And I have underneath here, you should create 1 section for each of the above topics. So about the persuasive concepts, reflection, and articulation. So I like to keep them in different sections because as you start writing for the workplace, and many of you have probably experienced this already, that usually when we write reports for the workplace, they're very sectioned off because it just makes it easier to read. There are certain people who only read sections of them, depending on where they work. Maybe your boss is going to read only the executive summary, but all the engineers are going to read all the all the tech specs and everything to try to get everything correct. So it's just easier to kind of group them in to smaller categories. Like I said, it gives you workplace practice. It helps you, organize your thoughts a little bit better. And when I'm writing, I like to do little things in chunks because I'm like, okay, I'll just work on 1 section today. Feel like I've accomplished something, even though I still have 2/3 of the paper to go. If I can say, all right, check, part 1's done, I can relax, I can go watch TV for right now, I feel accomplished, I did something. So I just think that's a little easier. Ethical precautions, like I said, don't put yourself in a situation that's too risky. And this is just, I'm not saying that any of you have done this. None of your suggestions have been risky at all. I did have one student once that went to a military recruiter and he was giving a presentation. Usually I have my students do presentations on this. And I thought by the end, I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to join the Marines. Oh my God. He didn't. So, but I was really nervous because it really sounded like they were really persuading him. So I got a little nervous. Anyway, but, you know, if you're military, that's awesome. You know, thank you. Okay, so that's paper 2. It's about 4 pages. It's not a word count, but I do want you to write, you know, 4 pages so that if you think about it, and they're double-spaced pages too, by the way, so it's a little bit less. So if you think about maybe like a page, 1.3 pages for each section, that'll give you about 4 pages. You know, that'll get you to it. Good? Questions, which you don't have because I'm talking to you on a video. All right, Kim, get your stuff together. Okay, now, switching gear, well, not switching gears, talking about the tactics and concepts. Like I said, I'm going to post these on VSpace, so you'll have them very soon. But I do want to give you a couple tricks to kind of work your way through it. You've already read about these, but they are going to be, again, they're just easier to pick out if you go through them and try to figure out what they are. So, taking it from the top with foot in the door, that is literally, like, if you can think of it literally, like you're walking into a place, like your foot is just like in the door, right? So it's like, oh, I just stepped in, and a salesperson comes up to you and they're like, oh, you're here, all right, well, you're here, why don't you try out this? You know, so for example, this happens a lot at like clothing stores, you know, so if you're going to check out, you know, and you're buying jeans or whatever, they're like, oh, hey, you know, we've got necklaces, you know, they're on sale today, $1 million for $1. You're like, how could I pass up $1 million necklaces for $1? So you go get 1 million of them, and they're like, oh, you know what, you bought jeans, you might want a top. Yeah, right, you know, I might want a new top with these jeans. You know, so they start modestly, you know, they hook you in by saying, you know, you're already in the door. However, look, you can keep adding more things to this, you know. So you walk out with a gazillion things that you didn't necessarily need instead of just getting the jeans, right? So you're already in the store, you might as well keep buying, is what that is. Door in the face. This is kind of the opposite. So this is where you start big and you go a little bit smaller. So remember when you were a kid and, you know, let's say, you know, you're kind of like early teens and you're just trying to get like a later curfew. You know, you're trying to say to your parents, all right, you know, my friends are staying out. And you think to yourself, okay, if I overshoot this, I can probably get the time that I want. So you say, you know what, it would be awesome if I could stay out till 2 a.m. Please, everybody else is doing it, please. You know, you're begging your like little kid, like, come on, I want me to be a loser. And your parents are like, yeah, no, not happening. You're not staying out till 2. And you're like, how about 1? And they're like, no. How about 11:30? And you're like, no. How about midnight? And they're like, fine, we'll settle on midnight. So you start off big and then you kind of work your way to like a happy medium. You know, so again, if you're haggling with somebody and the price is, like if you're at a garage sale and they have like a treadmill or something and it's marked for like $50 and you're like, I'll give you 25. They're like, okay. You know, so you can kind of go and haggle back and forth. That's what we can think of it as. Although I do like the kid asking for a curfew example. I think that's a little bit easier to understand. And that's not all. I think we see this one all the time. Infomercials are constantly using them for crazy products. Hey, look, there's this cool new way to cut your vegetables. But wait, if you order in the next 10 minutes, we'll give you 8 of them in 7 different colors. You know, so why do you need 8 of them? But anyway, you know, by ordering this, you're not going to only get that. We're going to give you more. You know, you always hear that in the commercials. And wait, there's more. Or, and that's not all we'll give you. We're going to triple this order. So you almost literally hear, and that's not all, when this comes up. The slowly escalating commitments is a bidding war, really. It's basically, think about an eBay auction or any type of, you know, auction that's going on online. If you're trying to or let's think of it this way. If you have ever, okay, so maybe I'm a loser. And back in the day when eBay first came out, my friends and I, this is when I was an early undergrad. My friends and I would go on eBay and we would try to sell stuff, but we would have like one. So there were three friends: friend A, friend B, friend C. So friend A would list something. Friends B and C would fake bid to up the price, so any real sellers would also have to pay more and more. So you were kind of getting this bidding war because you were faking the escalated price. So it's probably not what eBay was meant for. And I might just don't tell eBay, because just don't tell them. It's just between us, okay? It's just leave it at that. Good. Okay. Yeah. So slowly escalating commitment. Some person gives a price. Someone tries to buy something else. They lower the high the price. Blah blah blah, like an auction. Slowly escalating it. Okay, the illusion of choice. This is kind of like false dilemma. That we only see a couple different choices. There might be, you can only be shown door A, but in fact there's door B, door C, door D, etc., etc. So you don't realize that the choice is available. So you might say, oh, wow, this is the only phone that's available for upgrade. All right, but you don't see the little button on the bottom that says, see all phones that are available. They only present one thing to you, but you don't necessarily see the little thing that shows, oh, there are 20 more phones that are available for your upgrade. So there are more options, you just don't see those options. Conformity and social proof is when you look for others to see how they're doing things. This can really be just like peer pressure or appealing to the masses, like we just learned with the logical fallacies. For example, when you're driving, on the freeway or something, let's say the speed limit's 70, but kind of the flow of traffic is 80. All of a sudden everybody's driving 80 because that's the speed of traffic. You're not going to be somebody's like, oh, I'm just going to drive 60 and slow everything down. You're kind of going with the flow. Also, let's think of like when you go into the library. You kind of look around to see what everybody's doing. You know that library is supposed to be a quiet place. You kind of think, can I talk on this floor? Can I eat here? We look around for social clues to see how you have to participate in that certain space. So that's really social conformity and social proof. So you're trying to see how other people react to things. So, so again, going back to the clothes example, this often happens in clothes stores where, you'll try something on and the sales associate will be like, oh my gosh, I saw so-and-so on TV wearing something just like that. It's going to be so popular. Might as well buy it now because it's going to be popular. Like, it's not going to be here in a couple days because it's going to be just crazy popular. So you're like, yeah, I want to look like a star, so I'm going to buy this. So it's peer pressuring you into buying something you probably wouldn't have. Conveying illusions of authority, honesty, and likability. The illusion of authority, a good way of thinking about this would be thinking about a high school principal. When you were in high school and you saw your principal in school, they were authoritative. You were like, oh, I better be good, I better act, a certain way around them, I better not run in the halls, I better not be late for class, whatever. However, let's say you graduate and then you see them later, and you're like, oh, that's my principal from high school. All of a sudden, you still feel like they have some sort of authority over you, but really they don't because, you're a college student now, and that was high school. So they're two very different settings, but you still have that illusion of authority. Again, it's kind of almost very similar to the logical fallacy of appeal to authority. They have this maybe fake authority over you in a sense. If you and I don't really know anyone by face, so I could be running into you all the time, and I don't even know. Like when I run into my students, like I'll see them at Target or something, be like, oh hey, I don't know who it's more awkward for. Is it more awkward for me? Is it more awkward for you? I'm always weirded out because I'm like, oh God, oh my students know I'm here. not that you don't know I shop at places. Like, I'm a hermit. Like, I just get embarrassed for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like I'm, like, spilling my guts to you guys today. This is a 24-minute video already. I better move it. All right. Illusion of authority, honesty, and likability. Honesty, you know, you kind of get this with anybody. You know, they're like, just trust me on this one. You know, they have this ability to make you like them. Sometimes you go to a store and you're like, I don't know, I don't get a good feeling about that salesperson. I just don't like that person. You have no idea why. They just don't feel very likable to you. So that, you know, the illusion of likability isn't there. You know, other times you can say, oh my gosh, you know, that person was really nice. They were a good salesperson. You know, for some reason I kind of like them. I'd recommend them to a friend. That would be that illusion kicking in. All right, 2 more. Base rate fallacy and negativity bias. The base rate fallacy is when you ignore facts and just make judgments based on descriptive info. So you might say, you know, in some experienced students were asked to estimate the grade or GPAs of hypothetical students. So in this case, you know, if you're given GPAs, some people might make assumptions based on this thing that's not real. So this is a really awkward way of saying it, but a way of thinking about this might be stereotyping. That's not necessarily exactly what... Oh, my phone's ringing, of course. Sorry. Speaking about any embarrassing in front of your students. So this is, you know, kind of like stereotyping. So I'm thinking that this will reflect everybody else. You know, remember, it was also like... is it composition? The logical... Why can't I think? My brain's not working. But where, like, the small applies to the whole when it's really not the case. Negativity bias, where the negative outweighs the positive. This often happens when somebody's trying to get you to buy a different product. So you can say, oh, you know, buy this Apple computer over this Dell. You know, somebody at Apple might say, you don't want a Dell. You know, they get viruses all the time. Like, why would you want to deal with a virus? That's terrible. Just buy our product. It's very resistant to viruses, you know. Just don't even think about that one. That one's bad. You know, they're pointing out all the negatives about that product as opposed to, you know, that one actually has a touchscreen. It's kind of cool. You know, other things that the Mac doesn't have. So they're just pointing out the negatives and focusing on those only. Usually this is used in a situation where... obviously, they're really trying to sell this product and trying to dissuade you completely from the other product. Okay, we are at 27 minutes. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to talk this whole week away, and you guys aren't going to have any time to work. So, yeah, enjoy your week. Send me questions. Send me drafts. You know the drill. Week 5, Lacey out.